These are the top 11 things that you need to know when building a chicken coop for your flock. Welcome to the Hippie Geeks. Let's dig into this project. You decided it is finally time to get chickens, and now you are trying to figure out where they are going to live. Chickens are simple creatures, but there are a couple of things that need to be included in their coop to keep them happy, healthy, and laying eggs. I am assuming at this point that you either have your chickens or know how many you will need to house so that we can figure all of this out together. First, you need to realize the amount of space each chicken should have. If your chickens will only ever be inside the coop with no run or yard access, then you will need 10 square feet of floor space per chicken. If you plan on having a chicken run or letting them roam the yard, every 2 square feet of space per chicken outside of the coop will reduce the amount of space you need inside the coop by 1 square foot down to a minimum of 5 square feet of space in the coop and 10 square feet of space in the run per chicken. The absolute bare minimum you want in the coop is 3 square feet of space per chicken, but that is really pushing it, and you should reconsider the number of chickens you want to raise if you are getting down to that level of space. Our coop is 8 feet by 8 feet, the run is roughly 8 feet by 16 feet, and they are allowed out in the yard during the day. Second, let's figure out how much roosting space they need to sleep on. Let's begin by talking about how to build your roost. Chickens do not want to sleep on a broomstick, nor do they want to sleep on small or medium-sized branches. Chickens actually prefer sleeping on a bit of a larger surface, such as a 2x4 on its side, or a couple of them put together like we have in our coop. The downside to this is that they are going to poop on it, which means that you will need to clean it regularly, but it scrapes right off with a spatula, and they really do prefer it. Next, make sure that your roosts are the highest thing in the coop, but not so high that they are going to be hard for the chickens to get up on or hurt themselves getting down from. We have 2 perches running the full length of the back of our coop, one at 12 inches above the floor that is a single 2x4, and the other 10 inches higher that is a pair of 2x4s put together. This allows them to jump from one perch to the other to get up and down, and also gives them choices on which level they want to sleep on. Lastly, figure out how much linear space of perch you will need. Each chicken should have a foot of length to roost on. Each of our roosts are 8 feet long, giving us a total of 16 linear feet of roost space. Third, you are going to need a laying box. Do not make the laying box the highest point in the coop. They will all be trying to sleep in there. It can be at floor level if necessary, but we prefer to keep it a little higher. We also build our laying boxes outside of the coop with a hinged lid for 2 reasons. This way, it does not take up floor space inside of the coop, and it also allows you to collect eggs without going all the way in the coop, which is super convenient. Lastly, you need a 1 foot square space for every 3 chickens to be able to lay. They will typically not all be laying at the same time, and you can either have them separated into several laying boxes or left as a single one. We have a single 3 foot wide by 1 foot deep box, with a couple of burlap curtains on the sides to give them a little privacy. Fourth, give them some windows and some supplemental light. Chickens will not lay if they are getting less than 12 hours of light, with 14 to 16 hours being optimal. Having windows in the coop will help make sure they are getting as much light as possible and makes it easy to see inside so you can check on them. It also makes it easier on you when you need to be inside of the coop to check on things. Plus, it will help with the next point that is coming up. We have a rope light in the coop that is on all the time. The small amount of light can help to keep some predators at bay and makes it easier to work in there at night. We also have a 100 watt equivalent bulb on a timer to give them enough light in the winter to keep them laying. You may decide not to put additional light on them in the winter to let them rest, and that is a perfectly valid choice. We prefer to get eggs year-round, so we have additional lighting so that we can get to that 16 hours of light per day mark. You can see it hanging above the roosts in this picture. Fifth, and arguably most important, you need more ventilation in your coop. Especially if you are buying a pre-built coop, be prepared to add more ventilation than you would think. Year-round, you need a bare minimum of 1 square foot of ventilation per chicken, preferably more. Chickens are prone to respiratory illnesses, and between the dust that inevitably settles in their coop, their dried poop turning into more dust, and the ammonia in the fresh poop, it can all add up to extremely poor air quality that is not good for the birds. In our coop, you can see that we have ventilation around the top of every edge, adding up to a total of 20 square feet of ventilation. Notice how all of that ventilation is up high, which will tie in to the next point. Almost all of our windows are also operable, which is great in the summer and helps keep the temps in the coop down in the heat of the day. Sixth, your chickens do not need a heat lamp. They all have their own fancy feather down jacket on that they wear everywhere. When they are cold, you can watch them cuddle up on the roost laying right next to each other for warmth. Chickens can be cold, chickens can be wet. What chickens cannot be is wet and in the wind. That will chill them down, and like us, they will get sick or perish. Make sure that their roosting area is not in the direct line of your ventilation from the previous step, or of any doorways you have on the floor that go out to the run. As long as they have a nice dry spot to get out of the wind and rain, they will be just fine and completely happy. The only thing a heat lamp will do is drastically increase your chances of a fire, and believe me, after seeing too many burnt down coops, you do not want that to happen to you. Seventh, protect your flock. Notice on our coop how we have welded wire on the vast majority of our openings, with chicken wire at a bare minimum along the top. Your coop needs to be Fort Knox against your local predators. Possums, skunks, coyotes, raccoons, and cougars will all make a meal out of your chickens if given half a chance. We do not have much in the way of predators here, which is the only reason that we have any chicken wire on there at all. Many predators can tear right through chicken wire, so be sure to use some kind of welded wire instead, preferably 1/4 inch hardware cloth, as raccoons have been known to reach through larger gaps to grab a chicken. Eighth, don't be afraid to scavenge materials to build your coop. It doesn't all need to be new. In fact, other than the screws used to put it together, almost every other part of our coop is scavenged and recycled from something else. All of the wood windows and door came from Habitat for Humanities, the wood was from a couple of different posts on Craigslist, and the roofing came from our neighbor's old barn that collapsed. We cut the pieces up to fit as best they could, and it has worked out great. You see this huge window looking out on the run? That is half of a sliding glass door set on its side. You can build an incredible structure for not too much money, as long as you look around and get creative. Ninth, make sure that your chickens always have access to fresh water and decide how you are going to feed them. This is our automatic chicken waterer that we did a video about a while back. I will put a link to it in the description below. It holds 5 gallons of water, which is plenty for over a week even in the summer. The lid keeps the water clean, and the nipples keep them from making a huge mess. In the summer, we will leave pans of water out in the yard as well for them to drink from, so that they always have access to it. Feeding wise, we free feed. Our feeder holds an entire 40-pound bag of feed, and we allow them to eat whatever they want and just refill it as necessary. Some folks prefer to put out a set amount of food each day, but we prefer to just leave them to their own devices and self-regulate. It has worked out well for us so far, and as we don't have a rat problem, it is something that we can do. If you do have a rat problem in your area, you should probably get a cat or 6 like we did. 10th, do yourself a favor and make sure that your coop is big enough to stand up in. I have had short coops and I have had tall coops, and let me tell you that when you need to clean out a coop that you cannot stand up in, you are going to instantly regret it. This one is personal preference, but when I am scooping out straw and chicken poop, the last thing I want to be is hunched over. Our coop is large, and when I have to pull out 6 heaping wheelbarrows of poo and straw, I want to be standing. Finally, at number 11, save the litter on the floor. Most folks end up doing some form of deep litter in their coop, mostly because it is the easiest way to do it. We clean out the coop twice a year, once in the spring around April, and once in the fall around October. We start out with a fresh bale of straw on the floor, and then add in a new bale every 1 to 3 months depending on how it looks. Once it breaks down too far, it stops looking like straw and more like poo, and that is when you know that you need to add more. Your coop will fill up after about 6 months though, and you will need to muck it out. Some folks will get rid of it, but you should absolutely have a compost pile that you can put it into. Worms love it, and it makes an amazing addition to any garden once it has had a chance to break down a bit. We also have a video on building a compost bin, and if you would like to see how that is done, click on the link in the description below. When looking to keep your chickens happy, healthy, and laying eggs, those are the things that you should be thinking about when buying or building a chicken coop for your flock. Do you have chickens, or are you planning on getting them this year? We are going to be getting some Indian runner ducklings this spring to add to our flock, and we are incredibly excited to see them out there. If this is your first time here on the Hippie Geeks, it would be wonderful to have you subscribe. Hopefully digging into this project with us will help you digging into your projects. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and check out our Patreon page or merch store to support the channel directly. Thanks again, and we will see you on the next one.